students. Today we are going to see the third unit, third subtopic, impact of climate change on agriculture, forestry and ecosystems. Okay, because of the climate change, these three factors is getting affected. The ecosystem belongs to society, I mean even the humans and the other non-living beings and as well as the other species. The forestry obviously is also getting affected. Human always depends on this ecosystem comprises of all the other things. So it is foremost important to find out the impact of these drastic changes, climate change on agriculture, forestry and ecosystems. Introduction to climate change vulnerabilities. Climate change directly influences freshwater, agriculture, forestry, and ecosystem. Freshwater, the humans have been interlinked with the freshwater, meaning to say we are depending on water sources. Freshwater systems are highly vulnerable because of the climate change and their degradation impact like food, health, and biodiversity. IPC Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change highlights hydrological impact, water management issues, and regional vulnerabilities. So, this Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is a body which will talks about considering the how to reduce the global climate change, okay, which has been increasing 1 to 1.5 degrees Celsius every year. So, please try to understand the impact, okay, on the human and as well as not only to the human, even to the forest and even to the agriculture, even to the forest, okay, and even to the ecosystem. Climate, socio-economic and biophysical systems are interconnected, amplifying the risk. So anthropogenic pressures, worsened pressure. So anthropogenic, this all happened because of anthropogenic activity. The anthropogenic pressures worsen freshwater scarcity, affecting both humans as well as the nature. Observations and projections confirm climate change as a global driver of vulnerability. So, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, established by World Meteorological Organization, the acronym as WMO, and the United Nations Environment Program, assess the climate change impacts. The climate change and water technical paper links hydrology, ecosystem, and human systems. The key focus of this particular paper impact on water availability, quality, use, and management. Freshwater determines vulnerabilities across agriculture, forestry, and ecosystem. Nations facing water stress face added climate pressures. Let's imagine there are some by nature means you don't get a large amount of precipitation, that is rainfall. In that nation, because of the climate change, is become even worse. That will impact the human as well as the ecosystem. Irrigation of water and climate policies is crucial for sustainable development. So integration, sorry, not irrigation, is the integration of water and climate policies is crucial for sustainable development. So agriculture and climate vulnerability context, agriculture depends on precipitation, rainfall, evaporation, how much the amount of water is getting evaporated, and freshwater availability. So the human depends on could be able to survive with the help of food only. Even you have water resources, you need to have a food. So obviously you can get a food from even from vegetables or fruits and things like that. To cultivate that one, okay, that you human has to need to depend on the water source. Okay, so agriculture depends on precipitation, that is rainfall, okay, and the evaporation and freshwater availability. In the last video I told you in China the people have been started to cultivate the crops, okay, by means of the saline water. Okay, this is the latest technology available. So this need to be spread out throughout the globe so that the precipitation, okay, we could increase the adaptability capacity. That meaning to say, we could not able to the resilient nature could not need to come back. But however, if you increase the what you called capacity, the potential of adaptation, okay, even though this increases, but at the same time, it will not withstand for a quite a long time. Okay, you always need to remember the resilience need to come back. Okay, that means they regain to the original position. Okay, that means the resilience. What I mean is that the nature. Okay, because of the anthropogenic activities, the climate should not suited up. That means the temperature should not suited up on the earth atmosphere. Okay, that will affect the obviously the humans. Whenever you go against the nature, okay, the nature will try to adapt itself to certain level, and obviously it will regain back to its position. If you keep on polluting the thing, what will happen? Obviously it could not able to withstand, and it will not be a place to live, and human could not able to live in this planet. Okay, that's why the people like Elon Musk have been searching for the other planet to survive when something happens to this particular planet. Okay, so that is a is vision, but at the same time we should control, okay, mitigate the effects because of the human activities. Climate change threatens food security, okay, and income stability and water demand. For example, the agriculture people, they depend on the cultivation. Okay, so the crop has been cultivated, for example rice or wheat or something, then they go and sell it to the market and they will get the income. So if because of the climate change, if because of the changes in climate, if the crops is not growing properly and they could not able to cultivate and what they may expect, okay, obviously their income will go down. Okay, so the climate change threatens not only the food security but also affects the stability, income stability of the people, and as well as the water demand. Marginal lands face soil erosion, groundwater depletion, and salinization. Okay, small folder farmers in these areas are particularly vulnerable. Please keep in mind the farmers are vulnerable, okay, and getting affected. It's a degree of uh, how much it's affected. Vulnerability in the sense, if they come back to the original position is okay, but vulnerable in the sense, okay, so it's about the maximum point. Okay, so they could not able to come back again to the normal situation. Okay, so the traditional water projects assumed stable hydrology, but climate shift demand new designs. Climate change will redefine runoff parameters, altering irrigation and farming strategies. Coming to the observed impact on agriculture, for example, in Peru, okay, in the South America, okay, El Nino caused fungal outbreaks in maize, potato, and wheat. Because of the fungal outbreak, what will happen? The cultivation will reduce, right? The positive impact in some places like Argentinian Pampas reported yield increase in soybean about 38%, maize is 18%, and wheat is 13%. Okay, because of this climate change in some regions, as I told you in the last lecture, will have a positive effect, some region will have a negative effect. So if it is a drought region, arid region where you have a rainfall, is a good. But if you have already a normal normal region where you will have a high rainfall, high precipitation, obviously the flooding will take place. It will distract the normal activities like agriculture or even the human activities because of the flooding. So in US, heavy rainfall events damaged crops more frequently. In Africa, growing seasons altered due to climate variability. So let's say this particular fruit will be cultivated. For example, if you see mango in India, subtropical region, what you will cultivate, I mean mostly it will grow in the month of water, April, May, and June. It's very common mangoes, and Indian mangoes is very famous throughout the globe. Okay, if you go to Southeast Asia or Middle East, the people will ready to pay with the high cost. Okay, so if this pattern, if it is goes in a different pattern, okay, the people, the farmers need to understand, okay, when they need to grow this particular type of crop. Okay, so they need to understand first. So this has been come from generation to generation to understand when it will be get cultivated. If there is a change, shift in the climate pattern, obviously the people will get confused when they need to cultivate and when they will yield maximum in that particular thing. Because the cultivation, whatever the steps you are doing actually, I mean cultivation or what you call growing a particular fruits. Okay, so that climate condition is also very important, am I correct? So localized gains exist, but most observed impact are negative or unstable. Crop health is increasingly uncertain under shifting climate regions. So as I told you just now, The mango, for example, April to June in India is growing fast. This climate changes happens. Obviously, we are not knowing when it will need to be cultivated. Okay, so obviously this all will affect. So that will lead to an unstable situation or negative situation. Okay, hope you understood what I'm trying to say. So the projected agriculture impacts global scale. Crop net revenues may fall up to 90% by 2100 without adaptation. So if we don't adapt, what will happen? The crop net revenue, the revenue is reducing means what? That means the crop cultivation is the yield is very less. Up to 90% there is a decrease in yield. Small farms in low latitudes face severe yield losses. Drought and floods will eat livestock and crops other than the mean temperature rise. Irrigation needs will rise drastically, stressing water resources. Dryland projected to become hotter and drier and intensifying desertification. So that means all the land will become very desertified, desert, like a desert. Okay, so we should not bring to that situation. Okay, imagine the Rajasthan, the northern part of India, or in the Middle East, like Saudi or even in Dubai. So a lot of places are desertification, desert. Okay, we should not, because the Middle East are bringing the desertification region into a what do you call normal living region. Okay, so because of their technology, what they are having and the amount of money they are having. Okay, obviously they have been having wealthy countries because of the oil resources that we are very well known about it. Okay, so just think of what are the possible effects and how to overcome this one. Okay, so heat stress, monsoon shift and soil dryness reduce tropical crop productivity by a third. Cloudiness could lower rice yield in Asia. Okay, so what they are trying to say, if it is a cloudiness, okay, so that will reduce the yield, rice yield in Asia. Okay, we will be getting affected. If yield is less, the demand. Just imagine 1.4 billion of people are in India itself looking for rice and things like that. If the yield has been reduced, okay, there is a scarcity of food. Okay, obviously, what will happen? So you just go and see the history. Where what are the things which have been happened in Asia or even in Tamil Nadu? How the people have been affected because of the scarcity of rice. Okay, so these all histories will help you to understand the things. So that situation should not come. So we have seen the situation like because of the monsoon, not monsoon change. This has happened because of the anthropogenic activities that has been very well proved by the many by using many criteria. Okay, so the fruits, tea, coffee, and medicinal crops show high sensitivity to small climate changes. Sensitivity because of the small climate change, the tea, what do you call it, the tea leaves. Okay, if you go to the Ooty, Kodaikanal, you could be able to see a lot of cultivation of tea plantation. Okay, so that will be getting affected even with a small increase in temperature. And tea crops doesn't require much water. That's why it needs water, but it doesn't need much water. But if the climate supposed to be is very colder environment. You could not be able to cultivate the tea plantation in all the regions. It's supposed to have a slopy region where it will cultivate. It's supposed to cultivate it. Okay, so please try to understand the small change in thing will have a high sensitivity effect on the fruits, tea, coffee, and medicinal crops. Nutritional quality of cereals and pulses may decline moderately. Crop calendars and planting zones will shift regionally. Subsistence farming in Africa, Asia, and Latin America faces disproportionate risk. Global food trade patterns and food aid policies will be disrupted. Adaptation in agriculture. Biotechnology and breeding can create drought and pest resistant crops. So it's an adaptation because of the technology we are trying to adapt. For example, desertification, desert is there. The country has been 20% or 30% covered by the desert. Okay, they want to move into a greenery land. Okay, by means of the technology they could be able to do it. Even in the desert, they try to find, they could be able to put a what you call, they could be able to get a fresh water. Just imagine getting a water. Okay, they just do by what you call doing a piping and things like that. Just go and see how the current Dubai and the 50 years before how the Dubai was. Okay, this all happened because of the adaptation. Okay, but at the same time, we should not disturb the environment. That is very very important. The adaptive capacity may be enhanced because of the technology as well as the with the help of wealth. But at the same time, the climate change you should not neglect. Okay, so that is very very important. Conservation practices reduce tillage, crop rotation, and crop cover cropping. What do you mean by tillage? Tillage is the agricultural practice of preparing the soil for planting by mechanical agitation, such as digging, stirring, or turning it to create favorable condition for seed germination and plant growth. Tillage means உழவுறது. So the people in the olden days they will have a cow or a okay, and then they will dig the land. Okay, so they reduce tillage, crop rotation, and cover cropping, conservation practices. So adaptation to that one, agroforestry enhances resilience of soil and water resources. Water management, new reservoirs and irrigation system upgrades are needed. Farmers can adapt via crop diversification and planting adjustments. That means like pest resistant crops or drought resistant drought resistant. It requires only a small amount of water. Okay, so what I mean is that drought crop means even it will grow in even at a small amount of water. Farmers can adapt via crop diversification. That's what they say, crop diversification. And planting adjustments. Regional cooperation is important to avoid water use conflict across borders. So a lot of issues I can say, even in between India and China. So they have constructed a dam, and they say they could not be able to open the dam for the water. Even India to Pakistan. Okay, Sindhu River, they just stop it during the last war. Okay, so these are the things. So even India, inside India, between the states like Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, Kaveri issues. So these all regional cooperation is important to avoid water use conflict across the borders. Mitigation practices in agriculture, carbon sequestration through conservation tillage reduces emissions. Biofuel cultivation must be carefully managed to avoid food energy conflict. Efficient fertilizer and pesticide use can lower environmental pressures. Efficient fertilizer. So nowadays the organic food people have been they try to avoid the fertilizers. Okay, the fertilizers actually enrich the plantation because of the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. But at the same time, it will have a side effect because of the other chemicals. Efficient fertilizer and pesticide use can lower environmental pressures. Watersheds development enhances water tables, reduces soil erosion, and increases productivity. Reuse of water offers opportunities but needs strict safety management. Integrated climate smart agriculture is essential for long term mitigation. So, as I told you in the thing, even the what you call drop wise agriculture. Okay, so drop by drop they have a drop irrigation. Because of that they just cultivate the plants. Okay, or cultivate the crops. Okay, or developing the plant, I mean growing the plants and things like that. They do the irrigation. Okay, so that is very important. Integrated climate smart agriculture is essential for long term mitigation. Uncertainties in agriculture assessment. Okay, what are the uncertainties? Assessing the agriculture. Okay, localized impact on specific crops are poorly documented. So, what is why it's not growing? Localized impact on specific crops. Okay, or poorly documented. The farmers are not knowledgeable, but they may be knowing actually by answer by hearing what you call by their own experience or by their ancestral knowledge. Okay, will be passed to them. But recording the things is very is not common. It's not properly poorly documented. Differentiating climate effects from land use or market changes is difficult. Socioeconomic impact of crop loss remain understudied. Secondary effects on food prices, rural mitigation, migration, and nutrition are uncertain. Secondary effects on food prices, rural migration, and nutrition are uncertain about the assessing the agriculture. Data gaps limit precision in projecting the agriculture resilience. Okay, so why this is not growing? Why this data gap is not will help you to predict the things in future. Data gap limit precision, so we could not able to predict the things in a precise manner. Okay, future research must integrate climate, social, economic, and social factors together. So what you understood from this slide is that uncertainties in agricultural assessments. This is happened because of the data gap and also what you call the socio-economic impact of crop. Okay, loss remain understudied and there is not poorly documented of impact on specific crops. These are all the uncertainty in agricultural assessment. So we could not able to understand agriculture, assess the agriculture nature, okay, because of these difficulties. Okay, this need to be documented or this need to be identified and gaps should be avoided. Okay, climate change and forestry context. Forest ecosystems are highly sensitive to warming and drought. Okay, so nowadays the people, the forest fire is there, and even forest has been reduced because of the what do you call them, urbanization. The people cutting the trees and the people who would like to go and migrate into the things because of the high population. Okay, so obviously the ecosystem, the other the species like wild animals or wild animals and the birds and things which have been surveying over there will be migrated. Okay, the ecosystem is getting affected, right? The forest ecosystem are highly sensitive to warming and drought. Okay, obviously sensitive to warming and drought in the sense if you cut the forest, obviously the rainfall pattern will be getting affected. So that's why in most of the time, in even in urbanization, the people says that supposed to be 33% is a green land, greenery. Okay, so but the people have been manipulating the data. Okay, when I was working in a consultancy, the people will easily could be able to migrate the 33% of plantation in the total site area. Okay, they will show actually in the what you called the lane of the car parking. Okay, and they will grow some plantation in the terrace or even in the um, front side of the building. Okay, and they do all this and they say it's greenery, but it's not really. Okay, so the 33% greenery is supposed to be from the ground. Okay, then only it need to be considered. Okay, why I'm saying is that the if you reduce the forest area, obviously that will leads to the warming and drought. Okay, please try to understand. So the temperature limited forest face stress under global warming. Drought prone regions threaten water limited biomes. So what is biomes? Biome is actually we will see this biome is mainly a geographical condition which is having a same temperature and what you called uh, the temperature and vegetation. So I will explain what is biome means. It also includes what you call the aquatic life and marine life. So biome is a large geographic area on Earth characterized by specific climate, dominant plant life, vegetation, and an animal life that are adapted to those conditions. Example of major biomes include forest, desert, grasslands, and aquatic biomes, each with its own unique characteristics and living organisms. Biomes are essentially natural distinct neighborhoods where organisms are situated to their environment. So the meaning is the biome is a large geographic area on Earth characterized by the specific climate, dominant plant life, and an animal life. Okay, so if you see this one, okay, this is water limited biomes. Drought prone regions threaten water limited biomes, that is the marine life. Okay, or they used to call aquatic life. Okay, freshwater life. Okay, so marine life and aquatic life is same, but freshwater life is a and the saline water aquatic species. Okay, so the fire dependent ecosystems may transform quickly with changing fire regimes. African forests can face combined pressures of climate, land use, and poverty. Fresh forest health is linked to biodiversity, community livelihoods, and global carbon balance. Observed impact on forest. So let's say Kilimanjaro fires worsened by climate change caused forest decline. Between 1976 to 2000, mountain forest cover fell by 99%, subalpine Erica forest by 83%. These are the histories observed impact on forest. Erica bushland rose by 27%, Helichrysum tushan vegetation by 216%. How do you remember? Okay, just imagine what is the history behind it. Okay, so this data you need to remember. Okay, but in exam point of view, we need to remember this all these data. No other way. Okay, so Alaskan white spruce showed reduced growth from drought stress. Insect outbreaks and fire patterns are increasingly climate driven. So insect outbreaks like the what do you call it, the fungus and this will obviously will affect the human as well. Okay, insect outbreaks and fire patterns are increasingly climate driven. So because of the climate pattern only these outbreaks comes into picture. Okay, forest ecosystems already show signs of climate induced transformation. But at the same time, not all outbreaks, insect outbreaks are not only because of climate, is also a reason. Okay, so for example, the corona. Okay, we have been people have been this is all because of the human activities. Okay, from especially we could not able to blame any country, but actually from where the origin of it has been started. Okay, so just think of, okay, so this is natural things. This should be avoided. This need to be avoided. Okay, because these are the possible outcomes because of the climate change. Projected impact on forest by 2100, water quality and forest service may decline in 25% of area Africa. Okay, so the water quality and forest services may decline 25% of Africa in 2011. Tropical forests like risk large scale degradation and biodiversity loss. Models suggest nearly half of the global forest will change in time. Low altitude forests will shift upward, threatening temperature species. Grass fodder and firewood shortages will affect rural livelihoods and things and so forth. Okay, so the mitigation and an adaptation in forestry. So forestry knowledge gap. I just go for this slide. Forest climate interaction are complex and poorly quantified. Species interaction and biodiversity responses are uncertain. Local level data on biomass production and products are limited. Socio-economic consequences of forest loss remain underexplored. Non-climate pressures like logging and land use change blur attribution. More ecosystem-based studies are needed to guide local forest policy. So the knowledge gap, because of the knowledge gap, we have been lagging to predict the things. Forest climate interaction are complex and poorly quantified. So if the forest area has been reduced, what would be the effect on the climate? How it has been impacted? So obviously we know the rainfall will be lower because we need greenery. Species interaction and biodiversity responses are uncertain. Okay, the interaction, okay, all this cultivation, even that leads to carbon footprint. But at the same time, because of the anthropogenic activities itself is very high. Okay, when compared to the by natural means. So, but both has been added, then obviously the climate change pattern will occur. So we should know the quantify the species interaction and biodiversity response. Okay, so that is a very poor. The knowledge is very poor. Okay, so ecosystem vulnerability context. Ecosystem underpin the services essential to human well-being. Climate alters water cycle, habitat, and biodiversity. Temperature limited and drought limited biomes show high sensitivity. Impact include invasive species expansion, habitat loss, and extinction risk. Freshwater ecosystem plays a crucial role in regional vulnerabilities. By 2020 and beyond, many natural systems face severe climate-induced stress. Okay, this should not be. This need to be avoided. Because of that, we have been studying all this. Observed impact on cryosphere and freshwater, Arctic, widespread snow and ice melting, disappearing lakes. Okay, widespread snow and ice melting, disappearing lakes are there in the Arctic, and is shrinking glaciers impacting water supply, which we have seen in the last lecture also because of the glaciers basin. Okay, when it is slowly moving and it is melting fast and it's also getting disappeared. This is all because of the climate change. In Canada, glaciers release persistent pollutants into lakes. Okay, so obviously this need to be avoided. Okay, this all comes because of the anthropogenic activities. Rivers and lakes show species composition and abundant changes. Phenological shift like ELF fish migrations have been recorded. Lakes experience longer stratification, reduced nutrients, and deeper oxygen depletion. Observed impact on erosion and marine ecosystems and projected ecosystem impact, biodiversity and freshwater. Hydrological changes will impact biodiversity in all continents. Coral bleaching frequency will rise with 1 to 3%. Okay, so the coral is very important. So this need not be affected because these all by natural means. Okay, so the environmental impact assessment clearance is very important whenever you go for a project. Okay, the people have been studying the coral reefs, and this should not be affected because of the man-made activities. So this, because of the man-made activities, this is getting affected. Coral bleaching frequency will rise on almost the temperature 1 to 3 degrees Celsius warming. Freshwater ecosystem face saltwater intrusion, altered river flow, Northern Europe may gain species richness, but Southern Europe may lose. Okay, some of the Northern Europe and Southern Europe have advantages, one having advantage and others having disadvantage. This will not happen because of the climate change. Lake Tanganyika's productivity could decline by 30%. Fisheries and estuarine biodiversity. Estuaries means the river has been connected to the sea. That is called estuary. The fisheries and estuarine biodiversity will be disrupted globally, and projected ecosystems feedbacks. Climate change alters carbon and methane cycles via ecosystems. Okay, it alters the carbon and methane cycle via ecosystems. Positive feedbacks increase carbon dioxide retention in the atmosphere. Positive feedbacks increase carbon dioxide retention in the atmosphere. Ozone circulation changes affect fisheries, carbon dioxide uptake on oxygen levels. Ecosystem feedback loops intensify long-term climate instability. Coming to the conclusion of the impact on ecosystem and human and agriculture and things like that, freshwater getting affected. Freshwater, agriculture, forestry, and ecosystem are highly climate sensitive. Okay, this all depend. We have been depending on this thing. Humans have been depending on freshwater, agriculture. We also depend on the forest as well as the ecosystems. Okay, once because of the climate is more sensible. It's a climate sensitivity. Because of that, human also will be getting affected. Observations confirm widespread damages while projections show worsening risk. Adaptation exists but requires resources, technology, and governance. But adaptation is not the solution. Adaptation will help you for a temporary solution. I can put that way. Mitigation is very important. Strategies need to be carried out in order to reduce the mitigation of this climate change. Climate mitigation strategies like carbon sequestration, that means reducing the carbon footprint, and forest management are essential. Gaps in knowledge demand interdisciplinary research and local monitoring. Global cooperation is necessary to integrate the climate policies across all sectors. So, with this note, I conclude my today's section about the impact on climate impact of climate on ecosystem as well as the agriculture. Okay, so we will start with the subdivision of 4 of unit 3 shortly with the next lecture. Okay, if you have any doubt, please free to meet me on coming Thursday in a face-to-face section and clarify your doubts. Okay, with this note, I conclude my section, the third subdivision of Unit 3. Thank you.